Hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining me for another one of my YouTube videos today. So today's episode is a podcast episode from my Spiritual Queens Badass podcast with the gorgeous Rebecca Campbell. Rebecca's come on the podcast before, and today she's here to talk to us all about starseeds, her new book Letters to a Starseed, and what our soul biography is. I'm so excited for this episode. It's such a beautiful, enriching conversation where we talk about our favorite roses, we talk about starseeds, we talk about our soul blueprint, and we talk about why we're here, past lives, and so much more exciting stuff. So I really hope you enjoyed this conversation between Rebecca and I. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you take away from this episode. And of course, if you want to watch any more interviews from my podcast, you can find a playlist here on my YouTube channel with video interviews from other amazing teachers, gurus, and authors, which you can watch straight away. And of course, if you want every single episode on the podcast, then you can find Spiritual Queens Badass Podcast on any platform that distributes podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, and Acast. So thank you so much guys for watching my video. I appreciate all your views and likes. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new here, because I would love to see you again soon. Don't forget to leave me a comment in the comments box down below, because I'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode. And don't forget you can join my free Law of Attraction support group over on Facebook, where you can join myself and other like-minded souls where we talk all things Law of Attraction and spirituality. I hope you have a great week, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you all in my next YouTube video, which will be next week. Lots of love, guys. So thank you so much guys for joining me for another one of my Spiritual Queens Badass podcast episodes. I'm super excited to invite back on the podcast today the lovely Rebecca Campbell. So Rebecca, if you don't know, is a writer and devotional artist who leads activating workshops internationally, giving people an experience of their soul. She is the best-selling author of numerous books and oracle decks, including Light is the New Black and the Work Your Light Oracle, and the creator of the Rise Sister Rise membership. Through all of Rebecca's creation, she encourages people all over the world to spend more time with their soul and connect to their own inner temple. Welcome back to the show, Rebecca. How are you?
Oh, yeah, good. Great to be with you, Emma. And I think I'm feeling a little bit happier than normal because the sun's out, flowers are out, and we're allowed to begin going to restaurants and stuff here in the UK. So I don't know about you, but it definitely feels like things are opening up, and just kind of, just feeling a little bit more expansive. How about you?
Amen to that. I was literally thinking the other day of like, how surreal does it feel to just be able to go out in the sun shining, be wearing dresses, go and eat in a restaurant. I feel like we haven't been able to do this for so long. I feel like the last week I've probably been living my best life.
It's so true. It's so true. I know. And I think when we've all been going through it, and I know our own version of it. But it's like, I think that what often happens when we go through something is you can't process it while you're in it. And so, I've kind of noticed a lot of people also like feeling like that kind of like, oh God, what do I even do now? And just that kind of push pull. And so, if anyone's feeling like that, it's just so normal to feel like that. And it's impossible to process something when you're in it. And we are still in it. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And on the topic of flowers as well, I know you've got a beautiful garden because you normally show it on Instagram. How are your roses doing? Mine are nearly out.
Oh yes, they are. We've got about like 50 roses out. It's incredible. The place that we live in, we found out actually when we moved in. It was about a year after we moved in. We really worked on the garden, and I planted a whole lot of roses myself. But we found out that the lady who owned it like about 40 years ago was like a rosarian. She was obsessed with roses. She'd go down to the Chelsea Flower Festival in London every year. And so she had all of these really old rose bushes that had been, the garden had been so derelict that they'd been cut right back. And just this year, some of them that we didn't even know were there have begun to bloom. So It's very exciting. I'm definitely showing my age now that I'm just so obsessed with flowers.
I'm the same though. Honestly, my mum's such an avid gardener. And at first I was like, oh, mum, you can just help me out when I got my garden here. But honestly, now like I'm just excited as my mum. I'm like, the roses are coming, everything's
here. It's so nice. And I think we are probably flower geeks. On the spectrum, we're very high. But I think that we're all kind of really feeling that call to kind of return to the earth and recognize that, like, you know, like obviously when we're in nature, we feel grounded, but also we're actually part of nature. And so it's, you know, we've seen ourselves as separate from it, but actually we're so interconnected with it. And I think that when we do spend time with it and connect with it, whether it's like through connecting with the food we eat or drinking teas or you know, just laying on in the beautiful parks. I know I'm in Glastonbury now. We've got lots of beautiful areas to lay down, but in London when I lived there, going to Regent's Park was just my favorite thing to do. But it took me a long time to kind of have that behavior, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think we're all really feeling that call to reconnect.
Amen, 100%. And I think, you know, with being in lockdown the last year or so and like having all those kind of freedoms taken away, I think people have really appreciated nature more, their gardens, or if they're in flats, you know, really appreciating parks and things. So I 100% agree. I think it's been that like initiation to like connect back to nature, ground back into Mama Earth and just be present. I feel like that's the only thing we could have done is be present in this moment. And I think nature allows us to do that, right?
Right. Big time. Big time.
Right, well, we better get on to the questions before we spend a whole podcast talking about
flowers. That would be a great podcast. Let's do it.
It would be epic. So,
well, my favorite roses.
What is your favorite rose? Let's share it.
Okay, well, I would say that my favorite, I guess it's breed of roses, or breeder is David Austin. Do you know?
Yeah.
He most of the ones in Regent's Park Rose Garden are his, and they're super fragrant. But I've actually been, I've turned my flower obsession into my job now because I'm working on a new oracle called the Rose Oracle, which like it won't be out until next year. I'm literally in the process of it now. But through that, I've literally been geeking out over like the most ancient rose, which is the Gallica, which actually was like a single petaled rose. So it's very different from the ones we have today. So it's only 5 petals. So yeah, I'm kind of learning to love those kind of more wild roses. So yeah, anyway, you should probably like stop asking me rose questions because I will not stop. And I feel like you won't either. So yeah, I'm speaking of roses, I'm drinking rose tea.
We're obsessed, but it's a great obsession to have. And I'm definitely a David Austin fan as well. I've got a Hermione one in my garden and an iceberg rose one.
Ooh, lovely.
I'm not clued
lovely. Oh, it's so lovely. I've got on my wall, there's this, my husband found it for me. It's this, you know, like you've got a family tree with your ancestors. It's basically that of the roses going back. And it's like 65 million years old.
Wow.
Rose. So much more ancient than we are.
Way more ancient. Well, we're all pumped clearly for this oracle card deck next year. You have to come back on and we will talk about roses.
Yeah, in like a year and a half when it's out. Sure.
So today we're here to talk about your new book that is out now, which is Letters to a Starseed, which is published by Hay House. It's out now. So we're going to talk all about starseeds in a second because I know this will be a hot topic with everybody. But just to quickly recap everybody, if they're not familiar with you and your work, one question I ask everybody who comes on the podcast is, when did you spiritually awaken? What's your story?
So I think that I had my first, you know, I think the awakening process never ends, and it definitely just gets deeper and deeper. But when I like track it back was round about when I was 13, 14. That's when I had my first like awakening experience where it was like, you know, those moments where the light gets turned on or off, or happens both ways, doesn't it? And all of a sudden, the world that I thought I knew was different. So that's really where it began for me. And I think I'd always felt this, what I call like the call of the soul. Like I always, ever since I was really little, I remember like saying to my mom and just like writing in my journal of like, I know I'm here for a reason. I have to work out why. And there's something I'm meant to do and all of that. So I was very aware that of the call of the soul without knowing it was a thing, from quite a young age. And to be honest, it stressed me out so much because I could feel this, that niggling kind of feeling, without being able to understand what it is and why. And then, when it felt like a whole nother world opened up and I began learning about like the great mysteries and the journey of the soul, and asking questions like what happens when we die, and where does our soul go, and do we come back into the same families, or do we incarnate somewhere else? I was just absolutely fascinated by it. And so that really led me to read as much as I could about the journey of the soul. I began training in it, but I also at the same time just felt, because it did happen so young for me, and at least in my circles, it was not that normal, and I felt really weird. And so I started having friends who were like in their 60s who I'd go to my courses and stuff with, and that was amazing. But then I was a normal girl as well, and trying to make sense of the two worlds. And so that was definitely like a big theme for me growing up. And I went into what I call a spiritual closet. Little by little, around like through my 20s, I kind of began to step out of that closet. Through my 20s, I heard very clearly, and I had seen visions of like the work I do now. But I just couldn't work out. I was trying to figure out how to step into it. Like I was waiting for the step-by-step plan. And then eventually I just kind of realized, like the step-by-step plan, particularly if you're here to lead, and I think we all are in our own way, often the plan does not come with an instruction manual. And so it took quite a few losses, particularly around like my sudden returns, and a few friends passed away very suddenly, and long-term relationship ended, and a few things like that happened that really rocked my foundations. And I think that it was through those foundations being rocked that my ego, the one that was like, nope, we got to know exactly what's going to happen before we take the next step, it got rocked too. And it was in those moments where it was like my ego finally begged for mercy and asked my soul to lead. And so things really just opened up from there. And then it was really in that moment where I gathered the courage to live what I now teach, which is really about like living a soul-led life. So not dismissing the ego and the mind at all. We need it. We need the grounded action. We need the follow-up and all that. It's just as important. But really like doing the flip. So you're connecting with your soul each day, and it can be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, however long. And just being in alignment with that, and then inviting it to step forward and lead, and then putting the willpower, the strength, the determination, all that kind of stuff to work, but following the leadership of the soul. So yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, how we got here today.
Yeah.
But, like you say, when you awaken so young as well, it must have been really difficult, like you say, to have that normal kind of like teenage, young adult life when, like you say, you're being pulled in both directions of like being a teenager, experiencing life, or experiencing all your first in life, but then also feeling that soul pull of like, learn, go and explore all of these things, which like you said, in those days especially, like it probably was an older age range, whereas I think now like a lot of younger people as well, even
so amazing. Everyone is just switched on. I'm so in awe at particularly young generations today, just how aware they are, and how much that they are speaking up and really leading the world in unearthing things that a lot of other generations have just taken as normal.
Yeah.
And so I really feel like the youth of today particularly have a huge role to play, and they are playing it.
Definitely, definitely. And it's so refreshing to see as well, because I think if we'd had that when we were growing up, I think, you know, like you said, where you felt like you went in the spiritual closet and kind of had to like suppress that weird side, that kind of difference. You know, nowadays I think it's so much more embraced, which is just amazing to see, amazing to see. So let's talk about starseeds then. So for anybody listening who's like, what is a starseed? What is a starseed?
So a starseed is essentially, it's anyone who is aware or believes or identifies that they are a multifaceted being, like a soul, having a human experience, and that they're open to the possibility that their soul has experienced something other than this life on this planet. And so I used to see the concept of starseed as someone who has had an experience someplace else. However, the more I go into the mystery of it, I am beginning to believe that we are all starseeds, but what makes a starseed is that they are aware of it, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Definitely. So when you say experiencing lives elsewhere, I think a lot of people think like, oh, what do you mean? So obviously here, Earth, we're here.
Yeah.
So where else can we experience lifetimes?
So first of all, they're incarnations. So it's some kind of life someplace else. And it's also in between lives as well. So it's essentially believing in, the simplest version is past lives, right? If you have a past life, what happens when you die before you come back here? There's something that happens in between. But there are some people who have memories of places elsewhere. So for me, I'd always had these like glimpses of places that like look nothing like here, that were just like so innate in me. And I remember just being like, I need to get these out of my head somehow. And it's actually what was the main call to work with oracle cards, just to begin to like visualize them. And for me personally, I remember when I first learned about the concept of starseed, and because there are some people who identify as a starseed who like have this like odd longing for home without really knowing where it is or what it even means. And there is a few different like ancient words that have literally that meaning. So and you know, if you, in the book I speak a lot as well. I did a load of research on ancient civilizations and their beliefs and links between humanity and the stars as well. So, which is just so fascinating, and so fascinating to see different cultures from all corners of the world having similar stories, at times where, as far as we're aware, they weren't communicating. So yeah, through writing the book, I really discovered how much the ancients knew. And, you know, I think this is something that just continues to unfold. I think the ancients knew way more than we do about pretty much everything. And, you know, and then, you know, you've got nature, and now I'm segueing back to the roses, but, you know, you look at nature, like the ancient yew trees, the roses, like they've been around for millions of years. And I believe that they hold those rememberings. The other thing about which I found really fascinating when I was researching the book is that, you know, we've heard all of those quotes about like we're made of stars and all of that. It's actually true, like literally from our bones to our cells to our flesh to our hair, everything, it's literally made of ancient exploded stars. So stars that once existed and don't anymore. So Yeah, it's kind of it's a fascinating topic, but it was interesting when I first I got the vision for the book like many years ago, probably about 7 years ago, and I did the proposal, and I knew I could see the cover, and it's exactly as it is now with the like holographic pearlized cover. And I saw it so clearly, but nothing ever really happened of it. And it was called Letters to a Starseed. I knew it was Letters to Starseeds, which is really just like old souls, sensitive souls. And yeah, nothing ever happened with it. And then last year, as I was writing something else, which was all about returning to the earth, and I've moved here to Glastonbury, and as I'm showing, wanting to talk about flowers all the time, like I'd been personally really called to the earth, and about seeding ourselves here, planting ourselves here. And then my publisher asked me to write it, and at first I was like, no, that's not where I'm being called to go. And then I kept on meditating, and they kept on asking. And in human design, I'm a projector, which is like you wait for the invitation, but when the invitation's there, you have to say yes. And so I kept on meditating. I got my team to meditate too, and we all just got yes, 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 yes. So I fell into it, and I was like, oh, I know what the book's meant to be. It is, because the core message of the book is about planting ourselves here. So calling all parts of us, or all parts of our multifaceted self, fully here now. So yeah, and that's really what the book is about. This is like an encouragement, for us to really commit to why we came here, remember why we came here. And yeah.
Well, it sounds incredibly exciting. And I know a lot of people think, oh, I've connected to that. Well, yeah, I resonate with that. So I think it's definitely needed in a topic which probably isn't actually spoken about too mainstreamly, to be honest. Before, I mean, I'd heard of it like little bits, but then when I saw your book and it came through, I was like, oh, yes, this is definitely some of me. I can't wait to read it. So in the book, you talk about embracing your weirdness, or our weirdness. And I think definitely a lot of spiritual folk will relate to this, of where maybe they've been judged before. They feel like maybe they can't express their true, authentic, weird, beautiful self. So how can we truly embrace our weirdness?
Well, I know it takes a lot of courage to do it first. But in my experience, when each of us embrace our weirdness, what happens is that often we find ourselves like finding our own unique path, because we're not meant to fit into boxes. Nature shows us this all the time. It's like it needs diversity in order to thrive. And it's the same with us as well. And so the more we can kind of embrace the things that maybe make us not fit in, that's when we find our unique path. Like putting two things together. Like when I was a creative director prior to doing the work I do now, and what my mentors kept on teaching me was putting two things together that don't belong. That's creativity. And us as humans, we are creators. That's what we do. We're creating our life. We're creating the world. We're co-creating together. And so, yeah. And I think the other thing that happens when we embrace our weirdness is that our people, like the people who are really our people, can find us. Like they can recognize us, they can spot us from afar. And I think that particularly if there's anyone feeling like a bit like, oh, I don't want to be weird, I'm too afraid, that definitely is a beautiful reward of doing so. And I also really feel that now more than ever, oh my gosh, more than ever, like our diversity, our uniqueness, our weirdness, it's being celebrated more than it has before. So yeah, just want to encourage anyone to do that.
Definitely. And like you say, I found as well, the more I went along my spiritual journey and like loved myself, worked on self-love, embraced the weird quirks
Yeah.
and the laughs and the humor that I have. And I think you brought that into my work as well. I think when I first started, I was very serious. I was like, must be serious, must be professional. And now I think even just bringing like that joyful, childlike, playful energy into it, it has like attracted that soul tribe as such, you know, like the soul
Mm,
family to come forward, where you do find your people and you feel like actually where I
mm,
felt maybe lost or maybe not accepted before, actually by shining that, you know, weird self, you know, your fellow weirdos come and find you and they're your soul family, and you know, you find those connections that you want. So
mm,
you talk about this in your book as well, of calling in your soul family. So what top
mm.
tips would you give for anybody listening who wants to call them in?
Well, I think that the first thing is just like, I think understanding who you are is like the first step, because it's like you can't really embrace your weirdness and your multifaceted self until you know who you are. And so being curious about who you are, you know, you can find out like what were you like when you were a child, like before you had all your life experiences, and like what things light you up, like what are the weird things about you, like begin to be curious about that, and then just following it like it's a like a golden thread that you're following, and then little by little just like letting people see you. Like I remember when I first I kept on getting the vision to do the stuff like the work that we do and create and just to everything about the journey of the soul. But I was so afraid to just be seen. Like it seems weird now because like I no problem taking a selfie or, you know, being on camera or whatever. But oh my gosh, I spent years avoiding it because I was petrified. Like I couldn't even understand why, but I was so scared. And I remember I would go on my walks at Regent's Park or Hyde Park, and I'd meditate and I'd be like, all right, today I'm going to take a photo of me and put it on Instagram. Like Instagram had just begun and I had like no followers, like no one would see me. You know what I mean? And at first I just started by like writing little hand quotes and putting my hand in the shot because like that was like huge for me. It's like, and then there was more of the hand. And then one day I took a photo post meditation, and it was literally like the top of my head. That was it. And it was the biggest thing for me. And then the next week I challenged myself to do it. So like my eyebrows were in, and then it was like my eyes, and then it was my nose, and then it was my mouth. It happened like over like a couple of months. And then eventually I did my first selfie. So like, that's pretty full on. So I don't think anyone will be worse than me. But yeah, the more that you show the world who you are, the more you embrace who you are, the easier it is for your people to find you, for sure.
Definitely, definitely. So another thing you talk about in the book is our soul biography, and I'm really intrigued by this because I have no idea what it is. So what is it?
So if you think of like biography as like it's our life story, so the arc of our life. So from our biography from this life, it's like we were born, maybe we fell in love, maybe this happened, that happened, that happened. We learned this lesson, we changed careers. There's all of those things. From the soul perspective, it's the same. It's just more. So I believe that the soul is eternal. So the soul is the part of us that when we take our first breath in this life, and it lives on after we exhale our last. So so if you then open yourself up to the possibility that we have had more than one life, those lifetimes add up to the soul biography. So when you explore who you are as a soul, you're also exploring your soul's experiences. The soul has, so there's a Sanskrit word, which is the basis of karmic theory called samskara, where it's basically like imprints on the soul. So kind of like memories. And so our soul biography carries with it our soul gifts. So these are things that we've been working on over lifetimes, right? And soul memories, experiences, all of those things. So it's basically who we are from the history of who we are as a soul.
Interesting. I love that. So how can we start to discover that and learn these things and maybe look at lessons we've had from previous lifetimes?
Yeah, so like in the book, I've got like an akashic record. So the akashic record, that's kind of like going real deep, but there's some exercises where you can connect to your soul memories, your soul gifts, and yeah, and then you can also just like jot down as well, like what you're discovering about you as a soul versus you as personality, you know? So personality is often like who we learnt to be and who we became through our direct experiences, but who were you before that? So like I had a son, my first baby, 19 months ago, and I watch him. And so because of COVID, we've not really had any mothers groups, but we've just begun. And I watch all the little babies together, and some are like 6 months, some are 2, and some are in between. They've all got such different energies about them. Even, you know, and I'm sure anyone who's been around babies, you can feel the difference between different babies, even if they're just kind of there sleeping and pooing like they do for the first part of their lives. You can feel that there is a presence that has arrived, and that it's different from, say, another baby. So that's basically what I mean.
Amazing. I love that. And I think, so I know about the Akashic Records. I've worked with them before. And I think a lot of people listening have probably maybe heard of the term, or they're
Yeah,
like, what
yeah.
is this? So I think it's nice that there's a book we can go to now to read, to embrace it, to try it out. And I think, like you say, you can almost like connect those dots. It's like when you look at your astrology or numerology of like this lifetime, you can kind of
Yeah.
connect the dots of you, but actually connecting the dots of all the versions of you as well is great to explore and embrace more as well, so you can really truly embrace who you are. So I love
Mm.
that side of things. So where can we get the book, Rebecca? Where can everybody find the book?
Well, it's all the places that the book is, but I've got a website where it's letterstoastarseed.com. And so all of the links are there. No matter like where you're living, you should be able to find somewhere. So yeah.
Perfect. And what can we expect in the book as well? I know you've given us a lot anyway, but is there anything else you want to add to what we can
Yeah,
expect?
I guess it's my books have short chapters, so if anyone's like struggles with like deep reads, it's bite size, and yeah, it's there's some beautiful like poetic poems in there. There's also, my books always have like grounded actions on it. So while we are going quite deep with topics from, you know, who are we, where do we come from, it's got to be one of the greatest mysteries. It's always grounded with, okay, how can I turn this into something that's useful? So yeah, it does hold both poles.
Brilliant. And my last question to you today then, Rebecca, is what is one piece of life advice that you'd like to leave my listeners with?
Oh, I'd say you'll always find your true nature in nature. So the more time you spend in nature, particularly on your own, and notice how the seasons are changing, how the flowers are changing, the trees, all of that, it definitely invites us to kind of like slow down to the pace of nature and recognize how we're changing, because we're ever changing, just like nature is.
I love that. So true. I love that. I don't think anyone's ever given nature as a piece of life advice. I'm like, yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rebecca, for coming on. It's been an absolute honor as always. Where can my lovely listeners find you if they want to learn more about your work?
For sure. I'm on rebeccacampbell.me, and Instagram's probably the biggest channel. So Rebecca Campbell _ author.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming back on.
Thanks, Emma. Really lovely to chat to you.
I'm so excited for Letters to a Starseed. I'm so excited for everybody to go and explore all their starseed nature. So thank you so much, lovely.
Thank you.